We are in Parashat Lech Lecha, a very interesting parasha that has a very deep meaning about the concept that means behind Lech Lecha, go out of your surroundings, but go out from the place where you are, your comfort zone, your city, your town, your place of birth. That's a whole different thing, but today we want to talk about something else that also relates to each and every one of us, is that in this week's parasha, it's the first story that God was revealed. So even though God revealed himself to Adam HaRishon, obviously to Noach, because he instructed him what to do, and we know also to Chanoch, but this is the first time that the Torah comes with a revelation of God. But on the other hand, since up until that part, and even from that part and on, neither one of us has gained or got in any way a godly revelation. I mean, we heard about God, we do believe in Him, we feel Him sometimes, but really very few people got a godly revelation. I mean, we know about, maybe now we just mentioned Adam HaRishon, Noach, Avraham Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu. There are many other tzaddikim that they merited to have a godly revelation. I'm not talking about a revelation now about Eliyahu Navi that many tzaddikim had, but simple people, it's not very so common that people have a godly revelation. I mean, each and every one of us would wish to have a godly revelation, then we wouldn't have such of a challenge, which kind of answers in a very quick way the question you presented before: why does God allow bad things to happen? Because if He wouldn't, then it means that God will be constantly revealed. Therefore, what would be the point of creating the world if God is revealed? So obviously the God doesn't want to be revealed on a regular basis. And finally, when He does reveal Himself, that's a very big thing. But in this week's parasha, it's talking about God revealing Himself to Avraham Avinu, telling him what to do, what not to do. But we want to know, what is the real sign that this parasha comes to show me about the real existence of God? What is the proof that God really exists? Because we all can come to that place in our life. Some people have it every day, some people don't have it, some people have it every week or two, but we always come to some type of a point that we question the existence of God. If we started from zero, meaning I started not observant at all, or I started not even Jewish at all, then I always reach to a certain point in my life, then the question will come up over and over and over, and then if I get my good answer, then I will become observant or I will convert. If I was born into the religion, into being observant, that it was, excuse my language, shoved down my throat, it doesn't mean that I believe. Go now to a yeshiva, and I can guarantee to you that the majority, I don't want to say in percentage, but the majority don't believe God exists. And I'm talking about the boys and girls that learn in yeshiva. The fact that I was born into a religious family, not me, but the fact that somebody was born into an observant family, all his life was eating kosher, observing Shabbat, and was told whatever. Unfortunately, the fact that many people are lovely people and they're very observant doesn't mean that they know how to give it over. And I heard all sorts of stories from people that they ran out of their observant life because how it was delivered. The fact that somebody was born into an observant family doesn't mean he believes. And the sad reality is that if you do go to a yeshiva or observant school, you'll see that the majority don't really believe God exists. And I get all the time phone calls and emails from parents telling me, my teenager, they don't believe in anything. I have a boy, he's about to be bar mitzvah next week, he doesn't even want to put tefillin on. It doesn't mean anything that if a child is born into an observant family that he actually believes that there is a God. Now even us, Hashem for whatever reason likes testing us. We're not going to talk about why Hashem does that and what's the benefit of it, but we also get to some points in our life that we question, does God really exist? Does it really exist? How do I really know? So I feel it here and there, I believe, or I see a lot of people following. How do I really know God exists? So this is a very big question that we want to address today. And the Torah comes and tells me about 3,800 years ago, this is more or less around the time, Avraham Avinu was born at the year 1948 to the creation of the world, not to the declaration of the land of Israel, of the Eretz, of the country of Israel. And in the story, Avraham Avinu we read that not only that God revealed himself to him, but before he revealed himself, Avraham Avinu came to the conclusion by himself that there's a God. Which of course comes to a big question. How did this individual, in a period of idol worshippers, how could he come to this conclusion? Now we know Avraham Avinu, like I said, was born in the year 1948 to creation. And he was born in a very bad neighborhood called Ur Kasdim. This was like, maybe the east side of Los Angeles, the east side, west side, whatever. It is a very bad neighborhood. And wasn't such good fellows hanging out there. And he wasn't born into such a great family either. I mean, his father was a big idol worshipper, Terach. He had two brothers. He was the older of all three brothers. He had another brother called Nachor and another brother called Aran. And, sometimes you need to understand the history of the character. So he was born into a bad neighborhood in a very bad era. Everybody's idol worshippers. Everybody's bowing to idols. Everything was about idols. And there was an idol for health, and an idol for wealth, and an idol for marital, to get married. And there was only idols. And that was the reality of the time. Everybody was, the highlight of this generation was idols. In our generation we also have it. We have an iPhone 7, an iPhone 8, a Galaxy 6, a Galaxy 2, and all these galaxies and all these, this is a different idol. You go into the store and you tell, should I take an iPhone 7? Should I take an iPhone 8? Should I take this or that? And this is just choosing a different idol. You said money, cars, should I take the Mercedes with the top, without the top, and should the wheels look like this, or should the wheels look like that? And this is a different form of idolatry. So, at that time, the idols, they didn't have iPhone 7s, they had statues, different statues from wood and from stone. And the story says, we have many midrashim that explains exactly what happened. There's one midrash that says, that first of all we know that Avraham Avinu's father had a shop for idols. He had a Judaica store that instead of selling mezuzot, he sold idols. And he was probably like the big merchant in the area. And Avraham Avinu would always mock the customers. Customers would walk in, give me this idol, that idol. And one time, Avraham Avinu, there's a story in the Midrash that an individual came, bought an idol. And the next day, he returns and says, I need another one. Avraham Avinu says, why do you need another one? You just bought one yesterday. So the person said, listen, somebody broke into my house and stole the idol. So I need a new one. So the Avraham Avinu says, so the idol that you bought couldn't even defend itself, that it got stolen, then now you need another one. So Avraham Avinu constantly was making fun, and he says, if the idol couldn't defend himself, why would he defend you? So he had all these one-liners, how he would mock people. And you're buying the idol to defend you, but the idol was stolen, so he can't even defend himself, so you want him to defend you? Like, what's the common sense here? And of course, the famous story is that Terach, the father of Abraham, had a very big store, very successful. And one time he went out of town, probably to go and buy some merchandise, went to some expos to get all sorts of different type of idols. And when he comes back, he sees the entire store is demolished. All the idols are broken into pieces, besides one idol, the biggest one of all. He tells Avraham Avinu, what happened here? He tells him, don't ask. I came with an offering to the first idol, and I brought some fruit and vegetables. The other idols were very jealous, and they started fighting over the fruit and vegetables. So the big idol took a hammer and he started smashing everybody into pieces. And he goes on with his story. So Terach, Abraham's father, says, what, are you serious? You really think I'm going to believe your story? These idols can move or fight or raise their hands or be jealous of each other. They're a stone.
They're what?
They're made out of stone. So Abraham Avinu says, so if you believe that they can't do anything and they're made out of stone, how come do you bow to them? Why do you think they have any power? So of course Abraham Avinu was going against the system, and at the time Terach was very upset that his son is going against, and he's basically creating now he can create an uprising. It's not good for business. Besides, when Avraham Avinu was born, at the time the one that was ruling the land was an individual called Nimrod, that we read about him before already last week in the Parashat of Noach. His name was Nimrod because he went to go against God. The word in Hebrew is Limrod, to go against. So he went against God and he incited the mankind to build the tower and to go against God. And then when Avraham Avinu was born, his sorcerers said, we see in the sky, in the stars right now, that there's a baby just got born and he's going to go and fight you. And this is exactly when Avraham Avinu was born. And the story says that he called Terach to bring the child. And of course the mother of Avraham Avinu, she took him and she ran away. Her name was Amtalai. Her name was Amtalai. And she was the daughter of Karnavo. And she stole, it was a baby. She took him and she ran away. I mean, one opinion is, of course, we don't know 100%. One opinion is that she brought him here to Tzfat, to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever. The story says that she took him and hid him in a cave. And for many years, he was secluded and he was in a cave. And this is the years, I mean, we don't know exactly, we're basing it on midrashim, on stories that of course they have validation. But the beginning of his life he was secluded. Then when he came back, then he started causing all these problems, breaking the idols and rebuking everybody. And then when Nimrod was after him, he had to run away. Then he ran away and he came to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever and learned Torah for many years. Still he came back because the Torah starts now. When we start, he's 75 years old. So where was the guy, 75 years old? Where was he for 75 years? Yeah. So the Midrash says that when after he returned, we don't know exactly his age, he returned back to Ur Kasdim, and then he already had an idea that there's a creator. That's when he started mocking everybody about the statues. And when Nimrod issued a warrant against him to kill him, there was a price on his head. Then he ran away, and then the sources said that he came here to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever, and he studied here Torah for many years, and then when he was ready, then he came back again to Ur Kasdim to fight Nimrod. But why would he want to do it? Because his purpose was to go and fight Nimrod and to prove to the world that there's a God. So obviously I also want to sit in yeshiva all day long. But that's not what Hashem wants. Hashem says, I'm not consulting with you right now. If you want to sit in yeshiva, if you don't want to sit in yeshiva, if your job is to go and now publicize the word of the name of God, then I'm not asking your opinion. So obviously Avraham Avinu was ripe, and Hashem says, okay, now go and start turning the world upside down. And it started by, first of all, fighting the one who goes against God, who was Nimrod, and then teaching people and inspiring people that there's a creator to the world. And that's what Avraham Avinu did. Now, of course, in the beginning he would mock the statues, which was very easy to mock the statues. It was very easy to prove to a person, listen, it's made out of stone, it can't do anything. And then there was another problem, because people also were worshipping the sun and the moon and the stars and the earth. People were worshipping the earth. People were worshipping the waters. Anything that could be worshipped, they worshipped. So the thing is that that's something that is harder to worship, harder to make fun of. You worship something so big as the sun, how can you go and contradict it right now? So the Midrash says that till the age of 40, Avraham Avinu was in a quest, searching to find an answer. He knew something's wrong. He did not believe there were the idols, and he said, something's wrong here. So in the beginning of Avraham Avinu, and this is all based on the Midrashim. Midrash is a biblical historical book, and the beginning, Avraham Avinu worshipped the land, because he saw that when you put something in the land, whoop, something grows. So he says, okay, that must be the God, because this, I put something in the ground, it swallows it, and a week later or a month later, grows up fruit, a tree or vegetable. Therefore, I think this is the God. So he started worshipping the land. But then he noticed that the land, in order to grow something, it needed rain. He saw with his own eyes, there's a famine, there's no rain, nothing grows. So he said, so must be that the real God is the rain, not the land. Because without the rain, the land doesn't produce anything. So he started worshipping the rain. Then he noticed that there's only rain when there's clouds. He said, wait a minute, so maybe the clouds are the God. So he started worshipping the clouds. Then he saw that the wind is moving the clouds. So he said, okay, maybe it's the wind that is the mastermind, the power. Maybe the wind is the God. And that's how he went one by one. And of course he came to one point, he was looking at the sun. And he says, this might be the ultimate power, because it rises over there every day in the same time, and then it goes through a circle, and it lands over there. But the sun brings light. Must be that is the God. And then he said, wait a minute, but the sun is only partial of the day. He didn't know necessarily 24 hours, but he says it's not all the day there. And sometimes it disappears. And then comes a moon. So what, it's a second shift? Well, there's two gods. This is a part-time job. This God only has a part-time job. He only shows in the part of the day. So at some point, Avraham Avinu understood it's not the moon, it's not the sun, it's not the rain, it's not the earth, it's not the clouds, it's not the... must be something. So, there's a joke that the joke was said about 100 years ago in Russia, when they were very strong in promoting atheism. So there was a Jewish kid sitting in a class, probably was the only Jew in that class, and the teacher said, do you see God? No, you don't see God. So he says, we see a table, we know the table exists. We see a door, we know the tables exist. Do you see God? Everybody said, no, we don't see God. So he says, so must be that God doesn't exist. So the Jewish boy was a little bit fresh, and he says, we see our teacher has hands. Must be that he has hands. We see his legs, we see his body, we see his head. Must be that he has hands, legs, and a body. Do you see his brain? No. Must be that our teacher doesn't have a brain. So that was, of course, a joke, but Avraham Avinu noticed that there's something above what we see. Avraham Avinu, Baruch Hashem, had a little bit of wisdom. I mean, he had a lot of wisdom, but he had some common sense in saying, must be that there's something beyond what we see. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, it just means we don't see it. So Avraham Avinu already had a glimpse of saying, okay, I will not worship all these parts in creation, because must be that there's something above that. And when he came with that theory, he was right away caught as a lunatic. Now the first one who said, wait a minute, this guy's a danger to me, he's going to now go and convince people that there's something beyond what we can see. This is not good for business, and this is not good for my status. Of course, we're talking about Nimrod. Nimrod said about himself that he's a god. He told people that he's a god. And he said, I don't like this guy. Now saying that there's another person but me. So he threw Avraham Avinu into the fire. And the Midrash says that Avraham Avinu was in the fire for 3 days. It wasn't like a minute. He was in the fire for 3 days. But, the fire moved around and he had like a safe place in the fire. And after 3 days he went out of the fire with not even half a scratch on him. And of course, that's when he really proved his power. So, the question is, how or from where Avraham Avinu came with the theory that there's a God, that there's something out there, a power out there that we don't see, and up until today, the majority of the nations believe in that theory. Forget about if they distorted the theory. But the Muslims, 2/3 of the population, they believe that there's a God. The Christians, 2/3 of the other 2/3 of the population, they believe in a God. Doesn't matter right now if they believe it's in a form of a human being, or the human being is the son of it, whatever it is. It doesn't matter right now. The concept that there's a God way beyond what we can see. And most cultures, most religions, most people in our generation and in many generations back believe the theory of Avraham Avinu. That's why Avraham Avinu is called, that's one of the reasons why he's called Avraham, because his name was Avram. Av is a father and Ram is great. And he was the father of all nations. Later on, Hashem added to him the letter Hey to emphasize that he is the nation of one, is the father of the one main nation. But really Avraham is Av, Ram. Av is the father, Ram is great, and he's the father of all nations. So up until today, all nations believe in the theory of Avraham Avinu. I mean, they maybe took it to a different place, but that's not the point. The point is that we all believe that there's a God.
Meaning, God meaning
Something way beyond this world.
not the creator of the world,
Creator of the world.
the director of everything.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're not going into every detail here, but there is the belief in monotheism, that there's a power above this world and we don't see it, and it creates and governs and controls the world. Of course, each group and each religion added all their additions, but Avraham Avinu was the pioneer in the thought that there's something above this world, something we don't see. Now, so first of all, we want to know, where did he come up with that? Second of all, how did he get that information? I mean, how did we get the information about Avraham Avinu? We're presenting one question, where did Avraham Avinu come up with all this information? That's first of all. Second of all, how do we know that everything that we heard about Avraham Avinu, where do we get that from? This weekly portion starts, last week we hear about Avraham, but this week, he's 75 years old. Where did we get that he was born and he was questioning and he was chased after Nimrod in the age of 40, the age of 3, and where are we getting all this information? And we're going to talk about it later, but we have one opinion that is holding by that Avraham Avinu was 3 years old when he got his revelation. Another opinion holds by that he was 40 years old, and another opinion is holding that he was 48 years old. But 75 years, the Torah is not mentioning one thing about Avraham Avinu, and you expect me to believe now that you're telling me all these stories? Why should I believe it? Really, we know that Avraham Avinu was 70 when he got all this, when we finally get, we meet Avraham Avinu. The Torah doesn't mention anything. So there's a question here, where do we know all this information? So of course we know all this information from the book that is called, it's many different books, but it's called the Midrash. That's a historical book that gives us information. And we have many books coming from the Rambam and many others that tell us information. But nothing was mentioned in the Torah. So where do I get that information? One opinion is by the Ramban that he says that Avraham Avinu, we know about it because the Torah hints to us exactly what Avraham Avinu went through. The Ramban. Not Rambam, not Maimonides, rather his grandson, the Ramban. And he says, we know that everybody hated Avraham Avinu. It's just obvious. How do we know that Avraham Avinu was hated? Because the first thing that Avraham Avinu was blessed by, Hashem told Avraham Avinu, I'm going to bless you. Not only that I'm going to bless you, I'm going to bless anyone who blesses you, but I'm going to curse anyone that curses you, and I'm going to protect you. So why does Hashem need to protect somebody or curse somebody's enemies? Must be that Avraham Avinu had a lot of enemies. If the first thing that God tells Avraham Avinu, what does he tell him? "V'nivrechu becha kol mishpachot ha'adama." You're going to be the source of blessing. You're going to bless everybody. And I will bless whoever blesses you. And whoever curses you, whoever curses you, I'm going to curse you. I'm going to curse them. Hashem is saying, I'm protecting you. Don't worry. You're with me. You go and do whatever you need to do. So we learn from that. The Ramban explains, we learn from that obviously Avraham Avinu had a lot of enemies. That he needed divine protection. This dialogue was in this parasha. Right away when Avraham Avinu is revealed by God, God tells him, Lech Lecha me'artzecha, leave your land. And after he tells him that, he tells him, don't worry, I will bless you. And I will bless anyone who blesses you, I will bless him. And anyone who curses you, I will curse him. And anyone who's going to be your enemy, I'm going to protect you. You have nothing to worry about. So the Ramban learned from that obviously Avraham Avinu had a lot of enemies, that Hashem had to protect him. If he had a lot of enemies, what does it teach us? That he went against society. He went against the belief of that generation. And he went and said, you are all crazy. You are all lunatics. Why are you bowing to idols? So he created himself a lot of enemies. Therefore we know that the stories from the Midrash must be real. Because the story says that he believed in one God. He went against everybody, especially Nimrod. And therefore he needed protection. That's where we actually come and we understand that all the Midrashim, we have who to count on. Now, of course, we comes with a question, so why then did the Torah actually write it? Is it so hard for the Torah to add a few sentences and say that Avraham Avinu went against the generation, he had many enemies, etc., etc.? Why is it so hard for the Torah to come and say that? The answer is the Torah does not like to say miracles that you don't really have to mention. The only time the Torah is mentioning miracles is that it was done by the order, by the commandment of Hashem. That's the only times we read about miracles. You know how many miracles are in the Torah that we never even heard of? You know, even in the book of Bereshit and even in the entire Torah, there are two miracles that are kind of greater than what Avraham Avinu experienced. They're not even mentioned. Because the Torah is not a book of miracles. Torah says, I'm not here to tell you miracles. I will tell you a miracle when Hashem commanded it to happen. I will say it. When a person like Avraham Avinu goes by himself and does something and he gets a miracle, I don't see any reason why I need to tell you that. And where is our proof? That there are two greater miracles that happened to Avraham Avinu and they're not even mentioned in the Torah. The first miracle, what is an amazing miracle that we read? We're going to read it next week. Unbelievable miracle. We read that a woman in the age of 90 has a baby. Sarah Imenu has a baby when she's 90 years old. That's an unbelievable miracle. But why is the Torah mentioning that? Because Hashem commanded that. Hashem says, you will have a baby. You know, there's a greater miracle than that. You know how old Yocheved was when she gave birth to Moshe Rabbeinu? 130 years old. Why is that not mentioned in the Torah? That's 40 years more than Sarah. See? So we see a greater miracle that the Torah didn't mention. There's another great miracle that we're going to learn in the next couple parashot, that Avraham Avinu also had a baby when he was 99 years old. That's a huge miracle. Most 99 years old can barely move. He has a baby. But it's a bigger miracle that we'll read in Parashat Chayei Sarah. After Sarah Imenu died, Avraham Avinu goes back and marries Keturah, who was the woman servant before that, Hagar, and it says that he had kids with her. You know how old Avraham Avinu was? 150 years old. That's a much greater miracle than having it when he's 99 years old. Excuse me?
Isn't it a different understanding?
Forget about the different understanding in age, but we attribute the miracle for Sarah having babies when she's 90 and Avraham Avinu when he's 100 and when he's 99. Here we receive even a greater miracle. Yocheved was 130 years old and Avraham Avinu was 150. Can you imagine a 150-year-old man having babies? So we see here two miracles, and there's probably much more miracles that we just don't know of. And if we really put our mind to it, we will find many other miracles that the Torah doesn't bother to mention. Because the Torah comes and says, listen, I'm not a book of miracles. And if Hashem says something, if Hashem said to split the ocean, to open the Yam Suf, Hashem said that, I'll mention it, so you'll see a miracle. We know, we read it every year in Pesach. We only know about 10 plagues and the miracles. It says in the Haggadah, very simple, that there were hundreds of miracles. We read it clearly in the Haggadah. It says, why are you saying that there was only 10 miracles? There were 50 miracles. There were 150 miracles. It goes with all the calculations. So, the Ramban explains, listen, the Torah is not a book of miracles. That's why it doesn't repeat and doesn't tell us too many things. That's the job of the Midrash. The Midrash is going to come and give me all this information. We have the exact same problem with Moshe Rabbeinu. We see Moshe Rabbeinu was born. He was raised in the house of Paro till the age of 18. Then he runs away. 62 years he disappears. And then he comes back when he's 80 years old. How do we know so many things about Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu was in jail for 10 years. Moshe Rabbeinu was a king of the land called Cush. And we know many things about Moshe Rabbeinu. Where do we know it from? From the Midrash. We have historical books. The same way that we know about Napoleon and Columbus and many other characters. Why would I believe? Because it's 400 years ago and not 1,000 years ago. We also have historical books telling us things from 2,000 years ago. So we have biblical historical books, Midrashim, and they tell me everything. So of course we come back to the same question, where did Avraham Avinu come with the fact that there's a God to the world? Because I get this question all the time. So I want to know where did Avraham Avinu figure that out? So there's a story that once they brought a big rabbi and an atheist together, and they wanted to make a debate. They made a whole show out of it. And they wanted to see what the atheist has to say and what the rabbi has to say. Okay, of course, the atheist comes with all his theories, how and why there's no chance that there's a God. And he concludes and says, I do not believe there's a God. Everybody claps their hands. Now they want to see the rabbi, what the rabbi has to say. They call out the rabbi, and the rabbi says, I also don't believe in God. Everybody's like, what? What? You're going to ruin our ratings. Why did I pay you to come here? The organizer of the event says, I paid you here to come and put a fight. What are you telling me now that you don't believe in God? The person says, I don't believe in God. I am with the atheist. I know there's a God. So there's a very big difference between believing and knowing. And Avraham Avinu knew there's a God. He didn't believe. It wasn't a theory. He knew. And that's the big difference. And this is brought down, the Rambam explains that Avraham Avinu knew. He just knew that there's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because he had proof. He had hard, solid proof that there's a God. That's how he knew versus believed. That's the difference with us. Now, how did he have proof? Because he looked at the world and he said, this world is way too organized. Everything here is way too calculated. It's very precise. Has to be a ruler, a leader. He looked at the ball, at the sun. He says, every day it rises here, it goes the same route, and it lands over there. It repeats itself. Must be an engineer that tells the sun what to do. The sun cannot tell itself what to do. And he looked at everything. He looked at how the world is organized, and he said, must be that there's a designer here. Must be an engineer here. You know, they took my kids not too long ago on a day trip. They took them to a factory, how they make potato chips. You know, Osem or whatever the company is. And they go in and they see these massive machines. One machine is picking up the potato. Another machine is washing the potato. Another machine is peeling it with blades. Another machine is chopping it into pieces. Excuse me? Yeah, and then it puts it into the boiling hot oil. And then it takes it out and wraps it. A 7-year-old looks at that and says, wow, look at this factory. It creates chips, potato chips by itself. The 7-year-old doesn't know that above on the 5th floor there's an engineer, a computer engineer that runs everything, and there was an engineer that built everything. So Avraham Avinu looked at the world and he said, has to be an engineer here. He looked at everything in the world. For example, he looked at the mouth. And he says, what happens in my mouth? I put something in my mouth. I will put some food in my mouth. The first thing that comes in contact with the food is my tongue. The tongue has taste buds. It tastes the food. It sends a message to my brain. Do you recognize this food? The brain analyzes the food and says, yes, it's edible. Eat it. The tongue pushes it back into my mouth where it meets my teeth. The first teeth chops it. Then the back teeth, they grind it. As it's grinding it, my saliva starts coming from the pores, comes out, and the saliva is making everything a mush. And then I swallow it. And a whole system going on here. How did the teeth know to be here and not here? I mean, if it would be some type of a self-evolution, why would the teeth choose to be in my mouth? I should have teeth here and the tongue over here. And if you look at every part of creation, there's some sechel behind it. There's some organization, some wisdom behind it. Avraham Avinu looked at everything and he says, no, must be. It must be that there's a designer or an engineer. In Hebrew it says manhig. Manhig is something that rules everything, like a king. A prime minister, a president that looks from above, and he's looking at everything, and it's called manhig labira. A ruler that rules everything and gives orders. You do this, you do this, you do that. So Avraham Avinu looked all around and says, can't be that this is just formed. Must be that there's something beyond that. There's a story that once there was a group of young men, and there was a rabbi who took out of his time to go and sit with these guys. They didn't care about religion, they didn't care about God or the Torah, but he took the time to sit, talk to them. And once they got into a discussion about the creation of the world, and of course they all said, listen, the world came from a big bang, evolution, everything is by chance here. Of course, it just evolved in such a way, and anything that he said, he couldn't get to the bottom of their mind, and they just all agreed in once that something has just occurred. Okay. Comes the end of the class, one of the students approaches the rabbi and says, I like that picture on the wall. That picture is gorgeous. It was a big picture of mountains and waterfalls and fields and animals, beautiful picture. And the student says, I love that picture. Can I have that picture? He says, this is not a picture. What if it's not a picture? He says, somebody must have drawn it, no? The rabbi says, no. It just happened. He's like, what do you mean it just happened? He's like, the rabbi told him I had a bunch of paint, these little pints of paint on the table. and my parrot came out of its cave and he pushed the paint on the paper and just happened to make waterfalls and trees and animals, and just happened to. That tells me, Rabbi, you're making a joke. Obviously that can't happen. The parent didn't push the paint, and this picture just didn't form out of nothing. The Rabbi told him, oh, so the picture could not be formed out of nothing and the world can? So some people have the thought of, oh, the world just somehow evolved. Somehow there's a big bang, something exploded, and suddenly there was a world and trees, and that doesn't make sense even. Yeah, I mean, even when I wasn't religious and observant, I didn't believe in all that theories. I was like, that doesn't make sense. It does not make sense that suddenly, from an explosion, there's many planets, and Dafka, my planet, not the other planets, Dafka, this planet, suddenly has an ocean and trees, and so the world is too perfect. There's too many details that Avraham Avinu just looked at the world and he says, I'm very sorry. Has to be a designer, an engineer, and somebody that's running the show. That's how Avraham Avinu, how he saw things. You know, the way how the Rambam explains it, it says for something that is genius, has to be a genius engineer. You see something genius, you look now at something small, an iPhone. You're saying, what a genius machine. What a device. Takes pictures, plays music, organizes all my information. I can travel around the world, GPS application. It's a genius device. Must be that there is a genius engineer to that. That's what the Rambam says. L'tichnun geoni, for a genius plan, must be a genius individual that metachnen, somebody who planned it. So we know that in this world there are many things that we don't see, but we see the result. For example, electricity. You don't see electricity, but you see the result of the electricity. Now in our days, more common, more shayach to us, more applicable to us, there's electricity, there's Wi-Fi. We don't see the Wi-Fi, but I know it exists. Anywhere I go, I right away ask, well, what's your Wi-Fi? I don't see the Wi-Fi, I don't feel it, but I know it exists. But what do I really see? I see the result. Now, same thing here. Avraham Avinu saw that things are working, and he says things cannot work by themselves. If there's Wi-Fi, if there's electricity, I see the result. Must be that something assists it to work, to create it. Now, the thing is that this is kind of to conclude how Avraham Avinu figured out there's a God, is because he said, what I see, the plan, I understand that there's somebody who planned it. And even if I don't see it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but must be a plan to the entire existence. Now, and he also understood that if there's no God, there wouldn't be any me. He understood that his entire existence is based on God. First of all, he made a quick calculation that something has to create this whole thing. More than that, something has to govern it, to manage it, to run it. And then he got to the point that he says, if God don't exist, then I will not be existing. If I exist, then must be that there's something above us that exists. This is the problem with many people that don't want to believe in God. So that they don't believe in God. They're just afraid of observing what God has to say. So they might believe in God, but believing in God is very demanding. Because if I come and say I believe in God, you know what it means? It means I have to listen to Him. It means I have to start following Him. I told you many times when I told my sister my personal story. I mean, most people don't, very few people in the world go to one-on-one. Most people either see it on a video or they come to a lecture and they share the lecture with another 200 people. Yeah. My sister got a one-on-one. And after 3 or 4 hours of telling her all the details, she looked at me and she told me, "You're crazy." Told her, "I'm not crazy." And she says, "You're crazy. You're totally nuts." I told her, "You don't believe me?" She's like, "No, I don't believe you." I told her, "Well, why would I lie to you? You're my sister. Well, what do I gain by lying to you?" And I was very shocked and more offended. Like, why don't you believe me? Well, what do I have to make up a story for you? You think I'm bored that I need to tell you a story now for 3 hours? And she was smart enough, or more to say, honest enough, to say, it's not that I don't believe you. But if you are right, it means I'm wrong. Yeah. And I don't want to be wrong. And I'm very comfortable where I am. I'm very happy eating whatever I want. And I'm very happy driving on Shabbat. And I'm very happy with my life. Now, if I'm going to come now and acknowledge what you say, and I tell you that I believe you, I have a problem. A, I don't want to be wrong. B, I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. Why do you want to take me out of my comfort zone? Therefore, I don't believe you. So that's the problem with most people. Most people do believe, but they make a quick calculation. If some people don't believe, they don't want to hear. They say, if I'm going to agree with you, then it's, in Hebrew it's say mechayev. Mechayev is now I'm demanded. Now I have to do it. So I'll just flag, I don't believe, leave me alone. Now another thing is, before we conclude, is that I told you before, there are 3 opinions when this whole thing happened to Avraham Avinu. Because most people think it's 3, the age of 3. Most people, when they say, when did Avraham Avinu acknowledge that there's a God? Most people say, no, when he was 3 years old. Where do we learn that it was 3 years old? There is a verse, a pasuk, that says, Ekev asher shama Avraham bekoli. By the fact that Avraham heard my voice. Ekev is the gematria of 172. The letter Ayin, the letter Kuf, the letter Bet, is the gematria of 172. And we know that Avraham lived till 175 years old. So take 175 minus 172. We come to the number 3, meaning that when Avraham Avinu was 3 years old, he recognized that there's a master to the universe. There's another opinion that is taught by the Rambam, that Avraham Avinu was 40 years old. And Rambam says when Avraham Avinu was 40 years old, that's when he recognized his master. Why 40? Where do we get the number 40? There's a Mishnah that says Ben 40 lebina. If you remember this Mishnah, it says Ben 5 lemikra, Ben 18 lechuppah, Ben 20 lemitzvah, so forth, Ben 13 lemitzvah. It says Ben 40 lebina. Meaning that when a person is 40 years old, he reaches a level that his bina, his intellect, is opening, and he's more receptive to understand things. Therefore, the Rambam says when he was 40 years old, that's when a human being starts understanding things. Change is happening in the intellect. Therefore, must be that he was 40 years old. There's also an explanation. How do our sages say that Dafka 40 years old is that the age of Bina? So there's a story that a day before Moshe Rabbeinu died, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu written 13 Sifrei Torah. He written 12, one for each tribe, and then one for the ones that he had in the ark. The story says that the day before Moshe Rabbeinu died, he took one Sefer Torah and he gave it to the tribe of Levi, the tribe where he came from. All the tribes made a commotion. Whoa! Ooh, wow! Why are you giving them the Sefer Torah? Not giving us the Sefer Torah? Ooh, they made a whole stink out of that. Moshe Rabbeinu says, 40 years it took you to get to a point that you fight over the Torah. For 40 years you're fighting me. For 40 years, everything that I said, you were fighting me. For every commandment that I said, for everything that every rule. Now, after 40 years, finally you're fighting over the Torah. Who should get the Torah? Obviously, it took you 40 years to reach to the level that you're fighting over the Torah. Must be. That's where our sages get that when a person reaches 40, maturity, it's not necessarily the 40 years in my passport. It's 40 years of maturity that I now start understanding things in a completely different way. That's why that up until 500 years ago, it was prohibited to learn Kabbalah. Because the teaching was that a person has to be 40 years old. Not 40 years old in the passport. 40 years of learning Torah. After you learn Torah for 40 years, then you're ready to start learning Kabbalah. Of course, the Arizal came about 450 years ago and said, no, now everybody has to learn it. It's applicable to everybody in their level. And so we learned that the Chachamim from the Mishnah learned that from Moshe Rabbeinu, and Rambam says, must be that Avraham Avinu was 40 years old when he understood it as a God. There's another opinion that says that he was 48 years old. That's what I told you before. This comes from the Midrash. And where does it learn it from? Because in the verse, Ekev Asher Shama Avraham Bekoli, and it's a whole verse, there's 45 letters. 45 letters, and then it's adding that Avraham Avinu observed, Veshamar mitzvotai, chukotai, vetorotai. So it's taking the 45 letters of this verse and adding the mitzvotai, chukotai, and torotai. And that's 3. That adds into 48. So the Midrash says, no, Avraham Avinu was 48 when he first realized and recognized as a God to the world. So this is completely off the subject, but just important to know. But, of course, we want to learn from everything. And what we want to understand from that is that we also come to times in our life that we question God. Now, when everything is good, when I get married and I have kids and my kids are healthy, Baruch Hashem, and I get parnasah and things work good, it's very easy to believe in God. I stop believing in God when things don't go so well. When I start running into challenges. And when things don't go exactly how I want, chas v'shalom, people go through divorce, loss of finance, loss of money, loss of loved ones in tragic ways. That's when people, their foundation of believing in God gets shaken a little bit. Some people, they lose $50, they already don't believe in God. Some people, it takes a little bit more. Not chas v'shalom laughing at anyone or mocking anyone. We all have periods in our life that we lose our belief in God, our existence in God. And it's totally natural. I do believe it happens to everybody, and everybody can have a good excuse, so to say, why should I not believe in God? If I go through a very hard period, and I suffer, and I lose things, it's very easy to come and say, no, I don't believe there's a God. You know, people look 75 years back, they see the Holocaust and say, there isn't such a thing. How can it be a God and to do such a thing? So we're not blaming anybody, we're not coming with complaints to anybody, but each and every one of us meets times in their life, hopefully it's not so often, that we question if there's really a God. This parasha comes to teach me, and that's what it's coming right in the beginning of the Torah, to come and tell me when you question the existence of God, and even if you don't question the existence of God, you just need a little bit more of a chizuk, what's called, to be strengthened a little bit, just look around you. Just look around you and see the creation and see the wonder of everything that is around us. And if you don't see that there's something beyond what your eyes can perceive, that in itself should arouse in you the belief in God. Some people, a lot of people become observant. One person has a car accident, another person loses a loved one, another person has something, a miracle in their life. Whatever it is, people see that there's something beyond this world. And some people, I do know that they become observant because they say, listen, I look at the world. It can't be. That just made itself. I heard a very interesting explanation of a man that became religious, and he said, I was very interested in astronomy. and astrology and all the planets and the stars. And he said, when I was young, we didn't have much information, but now, Baruch Hashem, we have NASA, we have satellite videos, how everything looks. And he said, I once watched a video by NASA, and you see planet Earth is just hanging in space. And he's like, how does a planet with a diameter of 13,000 kilometers, it's more than 13,000, I don't remember the exact measurement, but a massive ball that probably weighs trillions of tons. Forget about the law of the gravity. Forget about that. A ball in the size of, we can't even imagine, our eyes can't see such a size. A diameter of more than 13,000 kilometers, weighs hundreds of billions and trillions of tons, and it's just floating there. What is holding it? How is it not falling? Now I can accept there's an endless, infinite space, but say to me, it falls, and it's not stopping to fall. How is it just hanging there? And it's not moving. And then you have another ball that is also hanging there, and another ball that's just hanging there. And you want to tell me that there's nobody behind it just holding them? And he said, that was just common sense. And of course, he started asking another question. Another question is like, it must be some power that we cannot see and cannot relate to that is controlling it, of course, creating it, sustaining it, and governing it. So the parasha comes to tell me something very simple. The fact that I don't see God doesn't mean anything. Which, kind of answers your question before. How did Hashem create such bad things? We just asked, so if something's bad, how could Hashem allowed it? Hashem allowed everything to happen. Now Hashem, bechavana, on purpose, created negative things that there will be the question if he even exists. If Hashem would reveal himself all day long, what would be the challenge? What would be any benefit of this world? Hashem says, I'm going to hide myself. I'm going to conceal myself so you can question if I exist, and then you're going to develop your belief, your trust, your knowledge. If Hashem would want to reveal himself to us, he would reveal all day long. Very soon it's going to happen. Mashiach is going to come. We're going to see Bet HaMikdash. We're going to see revelations. We're going to later on, in the later stage of Mashiach, we'll see the resurrection of the dead in Olam Haba. Hashem says, no, this is not forever. You will see me. Not now. So the parasha comes to teach me a very basic thing in my belief.
We do see them.
If you open your eyes, you will see him. That's exactly what the parasha comes to tell me. Open your eyes and look around, and you can see that must be, it has to be. This is the proof that the Rambam says Avraham Avinu had proof. He came with proof. And he says there must be an engineer. Must be a designer, must be somebody controlling it, because it's working in a very precise system. Everything is moving in the same order. The morning is the same time, the sun goes down in the same place. Everything is the same thing. I put something in the ground, if there's rain it grows, there's no rain it doesn't grow, the wind moves. There's a system here. It's not a chaos. If you would see chaos, then you would say, okay, I understand. But since it's so systematic, must be that there's a God. That was the proof of Avraham Avinu that comes to teach me that when I have a weak day, a week meaning I'm not a week long, but a day that I'm weak, I don't really strong in my belief. And all I need to do is open my eyes, look around, and to see the wonders of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's why David HaMelech says, Ma rabu ma'asecha Hashem. How great is all your actions, every little thing. Sometimes you only need to look at a little animal. You look at a flower. You look at anything. You look at a child, how they grow. Every little thing in our life. Even just look at the mechanics of our body. I just gave one example with the teeth and the tongue. Look at the entire anatomy of the body. You have to be beyond a genius to see how this body is working. We have billions and billions of blood cells. Billions. In our little body. And each blood cell Just the plan behind it. So all we need to do is open our eyes, because unfortunately we do have time periods that we lose our emunah, we lose our belief. It's very easy to lose your belief when a big challenge comes into your life. So the Torah comes to remind me, you have a challenge, you have a state of disbelief, just open your eyes, just look around you. This is called in the Hasidic term hitbonenut, to look, to observe something. Some people go and they look at a bird for a whole 10 hours. They'll sit with a binocular and they will look at the birds, or whatever it is, the hamsters, whatever it is. Look at Hashem. All you need to do is take 5-10 minutes out of your day. This is what Avraham Avinu did. We talked a couple of times the different forms of meditations in Judaism. We have Hitbodedut, that is most common. People attributed Dafka to Rabbi Nachman from Breslev. And we know that Yitzchak was doing Hitbodedut. When our forefathers used to do forms of meditation. Yitzchak Avinu used to do Hitbodedut. Avraham Avinu used to do a form of meditation. It's called Hitbonenut. It's looking at something and meditating on its essence, on its greatness, and where is it coming from, what's forming it, what's developing it. And when you look at this entire creation, one form of Hitbonenut is that I look at myself, and I am an entire universe. I have thoughts, I have emotions, I have memories. You know how many memories I have? I don't think there's a hard drive that can hold all my memories. I have 43 years of memories. You know how many seconds of memories that are? Now I look around me and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's 7 billion of me. You know how many people are on this planet? And that's it. They have emotions and thoughts and memories, and before that was another generation of another 7 billion, and before that another generation. And we're all stuck on this ball, this little planet. And then you look up to the sky and you say, the distance between here to the moon and the distance between here to the sun, and look how many stars are out there, millions, and how many galaxies. And we know that everything in this world has a minister in the heavens that controls it. We know we have 70 ministers in Shemayim, in the heavens, and every minister has an angel above it that governs it. And above that angel there's another angel, and it goes up and up and up, and this is nothing compared to Hashem. And then I get to a point of saying, look at that, and where am I compared to Hashem? This is one form of absorbing Hitbonenut, that I look around, and that in itself brings me to understand that there's a creator to the world. It's way beyond what I can comprehend. I can't hold it, I can't see it. It's because I'm the problem. I'm the limited individual, not the God. So B'ezrat Hashem, this teachings and this parasha has to bring me to the point that I have to concentrate or to meditate every day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, on the greatness of Hashem. And that will bring to my system the level of belief that I believe Hashem. I don't believe in Hashem. I know there's a God. I don't need to say I believe, I don't believe. I know. I look now, you know what I look? On purpose I put that aquarium over there. I look at the fish all the time. That's another proof of God. First of all, the beauty, but how they work. They're just floating there, living their life. So anything that you look at, you can see godliness in it. B'ezrat Hashem, we should merit to get to a point that we see God with our own eyes. And B'ezrat Hashem, we should see it very soon. Of course, that will happen only when Mashiach comes, that we see Hashem with our own eyes, as the Prophet says, "V'yada de'a haaretz et Hashem," that everybody will see God. And he adds, and he says, "Kamayim layam mechasim," the same way that the ocean, the water, covers the ocean, and we don't see what's in the ocean. And right now, God covers the world, we don't see what's going on. Very soon that will be removed, and we'll be able to see everything. This, Baruch Hashem, will happen with the coming of Mashiach. Until then, we have to work on our emunah, and the simple exercise is just look around in the world and you see that God exists.